I'm just going to jump right into things that stood out to me. Um, in the article, everyone is welcome, making school libraries culturally relevant for all students. It talked about culturally relevant librarianship. And it asked the question, how do we make sure students feel empowered? And how do we validate students in an effort to make sure they truly feel welcome in library spaces? In the first question, it stated to lift up stories and information that depicts all people, and then making sure they know that their stories are valued and valid, even if others don't understand cultural norms. When I was reading that, it made me think about teen advisory boards and groups that public libraries um, have for their teens. And normally it's once a month, maybe twice a month, where teens come together to just discuss teen life. They discuss. They may do some programming, um, but they also um, choose what programming that they do, and a lot of times it's things that others may not feel comfortable doing or feel comfortable talking about, or if it's a book club, it may be a book that they're not comfortable reading, but once they come together, it just makes a difference. um, Especially with teens. Teens are hard. It is really hard to get teens into the library. It's hard to get teens to stay in the library. So I think these teen advisory groups, they really give their teen patrons a voice. And so I feel like even when they're sharing about things that they're going through, it's a safe space for them. So um, it just makes them feel good. It makes them feel safe. It makes them feel secure. And they don't have a problem coming, and sharing. So the next thing, when it talked about anti-racism and allyship, and one of the things that I wrote down, why is culturally sustaining pedagogy important? When we believe our own forms of expertise are valued, we are more likely to succeed. I put a star by youth cultures move so fast. How can I keep up? And then it talked about, like, you really don't need to. Allow students to be youth culture experts in your library. Find ways for them to bring their own cultural expertise into the space. And so when I read that, I thought about too how after the pandemic, once libraries begin to fully open up, um, and I'm gonna give you a little bit of history. I work at the state library, and so I started right at the beginning of the pandemic. So once we began to start going out visiting libraries, doing site visits, a lot of the things that we were hearing from librarians and library staff, that it was hard to get teens back into the library. Um, a lot of it is, with technology. A lot of kids didn't see the point of coming back to the library. They have their laptops, they have their Kindles, they have, their gaming. But it was really hard trying to get teens back into the library. And one library system that we visited, very small rural library, but their space, they formed a teen space, which was not a lot of space. They formed a teen space, and what they did was allow teens to come in and just do their own art. There was no requirement of what they were supposed to draw or make. And so this space now is filled with pictures from different teens, different backgrounds, different just different I'm sorry talents, gifts. And so, but now when they walk into this space, they feel special, they feel empowered, like this is my space. And you know, when they bring in their family or their friends, they can go to this artwork and say, hey, I did that, you know, I contributed to this space. The next thing, well, in week 6, the Project Ready Module 9 and the video with Dr. Beverly Tatum, is my skin brown because I drink chocolate milk? And the first question she posed, what was your earliest race-related memory? And like doing this reading and watching the videos, it made me feel kind of I don't know the word, but so I didn't experience like racism until I was about 20 years old. I don't know if I should feel bad for saying that, but I never did. I was born and raised, grew up in West Palm Beach, Florida. I moved to South Carolina to attend college, and once I graduated from college was when I experienced my first episode of racism. My girlfriends and I just decided that we were gonna go on a trip. You know, we've graduated, we have a few weeks off before we go and do our own things, and we decided to go to Myrtle Beach. And what we didn't know was that it was during White Bikers Weekend. And of course, we're 20-year-olds. We just want to go to the beach. And so we're riding, and we have all the windows down, and there was a couple that like rode up beside us and just like called us the N-words and drove off. And like we didn't know how to react. Like we were scared. We were like confused, you know, like what just happened, and like did that like really happen? And this was back 2001. So and I hadn't thought about that situation in a very long time until I saw this video, and she asked that question. And she also asked like what emotions was attached to the memory. Like, again, I'm 20 years old. Like, we're scared. Like, we're confused because we were just like, what did we do? We did nothing. We're both at the light. And it was just said just because. So I don't think it changed the way I looked at people. But it is like a lasting memory for me. So also when she was talking, she was telling the story about the conversation that she had with her 4-year-old about race, and the 3 things that she wanted to make sure she conveyed before she started this conversation. And the first thing she said was she wanted to reassure him that these things were in the past and that they weren't things he had to worry about. And I did just what I did just now. Like, I chuckled, because it just made me think about, the time that we're in now, and how scary that is, and the conversations that we have to have with our young people, are not conversations that I had to have when I was growing up. So it's hard and it's disheartening, to even think about. Um, Also, the video being 12, what are you? I thought these 12-year-olds were like very articulate in, explaining their feelings, as far as race. And I don't know if this is, I'm just giving a whole bunch of examples, but it, that's how I made the connections, just thinking about, areas in my life. So, I am African American and then, Haitian. And growing up in the 80s, um, being, half Haitian, as they said, or being Haitian back then was, not a flex, as the young people say. It was not, a good thing. Like, being Haitian was seen as, negative. Um, a lot of bullying, a lot of name calling, a lot of, oh, you came over here on the banana boat. Your dad came over here on the banana boat. Just a whole lot of that. And, um, I was embarrassed. I was embarrassed of, uh, my heritage. I was embarrassed of that. That's who I was, you know. But now, people like, it's the cool thing now, they in back home in West Palm Beach, they call them Zoes. Like, everybody wants to be a Zoe now, but back then it wasn't acceptable. You know, the way we dressed, what we ate. So um, I could relate to the little girl about how she felt that, when the kids teased her for her food, like, she thought it was negative, like it was a bad thing. But now, like, international food is the thing. Like, it's sorry, I'm losing my thought. I apologize. I had brain fog, but I'm sorry. I lost my train of thought. But so yeah, I really enjoyed that video, and it was very relatable. So, and then Dr. Chapp's transcript, her interview was very eye opening. Um, when she talked about traveling to Brooklyn, and she was using Google Maps, and her driver was using Waze, and the quote she made: "A racial ethnic identity development model is like your own personal navigational device. It's a thing you go to help you make sense of your journey to wherever it is you're heading." Um, so okay, I know I'm sorry. I know I'm rambling. I don't do well with recording. But the last thing I'm going to talk about is the Vocational All article, which was really good. And so I'm just going to talk about some of the notes that I took. And I liked how the author compared um, librarianship to like religion, and how like sacred it is. And also the first statement that he made about how librarians, he's going to be referring to librarians, and it doesn't mean that they're professional. It's everybody that works in the library. I've always had an issue with that because when I started in libraries 13 years ago, um, well, even before that, just growing up, everybody was a librarian. Like, I didn't know who had a degree and who didn't. And I think it's the same thing now when patrons, kids, adults, seniors, when they walk into the library and they see you, they don't see a degree. They just know that you're the librarian, you know. Um, so I appreciated him saying that. And it just talked about how librarians go above and beyond to serve. And then I wrote in my notes, like, just a servant in the field, when he talked about how vocational all manifest. And he talked about how librarianship was seen as a calling. But even being a servant in this field like causes burnout. And this, I was writing this down even before I got to the end of the article. Burnout, frustration, feeling overwhelmed, stressed, um, and even librarians are sacred spaces. uh, Talked about the study found that the satisfaction from serving people is what new librarians thrive on. And it also talked about the study where seasoned librarians, not one mentioned salary as a negative feature of the profession. And then I wrote down, as librarians, teachers, caregivers, we don't do the job for the money. It's for the love of service and love for people. And then I also, going back to the servanthood in librarianship, I thought about how burnout I was when I worked in the church, in my old church, when I was the youth director, and I was also the church secretary, and I was the usher ministry vice president. Like, it was a lot, but you feel like I'm here to serve God, to serve God's people. But serving doesn't necessarily have to mean being like overworked. And I think that's where, in this field, all the good things that we're doing causes all this negative effects, stress, depression, um, weight gain, anxiety, all of these things. But the work that we're doing is so important. It's so valuable and it's so necessary. Um, I wanted to be a nurse. I thought I wanted to be a nurse. I can't stand the sight of blood. So I'm just like, being a librarian is the next best thing. I still get to help people. I still get to pour myself into this profession. But after reading this article, like, at what expense? At what expense? Um, now, librarianship is amazing, but it's a lot. There was no, like, nothing I could put after that. It's just a lot. It's a lot of good. And he talked about how this librarian, um, oh Lord, let me find it. What's her name? Shara Kowalski, and he was talking about job creep, and how um, working in libraries, like, you continue to add on to your duties, even sometimes not intentionally. Like, you just start doing the work. You just start doing the work, and then it becomes a part of your everyday. But then that just adds more to your plate, more than what you were intending to do, more than the job description requires. I've heard some of my colleagues say, that's way above my pay grade. So, but as librarians, we're here to serve. We're here to serve. But let me go back. He said how Sheriff Kowalski and the other staff were, administering the Narcan, and they were being trained. And with the new act that was put into place, it's no longer extra. It just becomes a part of what's expected of them. But then that comes with no pay. No, you're doing more work. Then no pay, no compensation. And I thought about too how librarians are social workers now, because there's so many areas of social work that is now a part of the library. We're not trained. We can provide resources, but people come to the library, they're not, they want information, they want results, and they want them right then. He talked about being a good librarian is tied to struggle, sacrifice, and obedience. Then the more one struggles in the work, the holier that work in institution becomes. So I just wrote down about having work-life balance and setting boundaries is something that I've had to work on personally, especially in the last year. It's just been a lot, and it's so important, so that we don't get burnout and we don't lose sight of why we're doing the work that we're doing. So that's my reflection. I hope you can take away something from this, and I appreciate you listening. Good night.